All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Awakened Happiness Now Global Series. Thank you so much for being here. If you are here with us live on Zoom, welcome, welcome. If you are watching later on the recording, the replay on YouTube, welcome, welcome. Please do subscribe so you can take advantage of all the current shows, all the previous shows, all the shows coming up. It is my deepest wish, desire, and intention to bring to you these amazing speakers who are sharing their wisdom, their teachings, their experiences, their processes, their transmissions, etc., so that we can all thrive, so that we can all awaken to happiness now. And so today, my dear friend Brooklin Rayne is back with us, and we're going to be talking about activating the unified field of creation, dissolving all endgame programs. So some of what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about what is the unified field of creation and how is it relevant to our collective ascension during this time? What are endgame programs and how does our participation in these programs limit our access of our greatest potential in life? How does dissolving warring frequencies with linear time create opportunities for quantum leaping and manifestation? What happens when we make peace with time? And Brooklyn's going to be facilitating a cellular DNA activation and transmission within the unified field of creation a little bit later. So, for those of you who may not know Brooklyn, she has been with us many times. She is a Crystal's Resurrection Guide, a quantum field interpreter, and diamond breathwork and plasma flow ceremonial alchemist. And through her diamond channel, she is able to interpret the quantum fabric of one's unique energy field, inclusive of the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies, bringing to light and clarity the awarenesses and insights that are most desired to be known and explored through one's set intention. As a clear channel of direct source communication, Brooklyn connects with your highest self to further interpret and bring into clarity what is the greatest alignment with your current path of life, the soul blueprint. The pathways of self-realization that are opened up through her holistic approach invites one to create clarity, peace, presence, compassion, love, abundance, and spaciousness within all facets of life. So I'm so excited that Brooklyn is back with us. And of course, it's going to be a powerful conversation as well as a powerful co-creation in this space with all of us as well. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Brooklyn back to the show. Brooklyn, welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Always love our community co-creation. And what a whopper time that we're in right now. So I love the timing of this co-creation. I'm sure everybody that's here right now is feeling their own unique elixir of potency. And yeah, so grateful to be here.
Well, there's a lot going on. We're not going to go into all of the nitty gritties of everything, but there's a lot coming up for everyone, I think, right now. Like, if we are on these types of calls, we are going through, I feel like a massive change, a massive upgrade within our being, a true remembrance of who we are, or an opening and unveiling more of who we truly are. But that, brings with it some discomfort, I'll say. That's a nice word, right? So I know that whenever you come on, we always have such a wonderful time having the conversation, but also that transmission and the activation that you do is, I have found for myself to be so powerful. So I'm excited about that as well. Right.
Me
So
too.
let's talk. Yeah. So let's talk about um, activating the unified field of creation, dissolving all endgame programs. So for those who may not know, if you want to just go into a little bit about what is the unified field of creation.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are infinite expressions that could be explored of what the unified field of creation is, but in relevance to this now time, our human experience, and where we are within the collective ascension or ascension timelines, if you will. This unified field of creation is it's a quantum field, it's a plasmic field, it's a fabric, if you will, of creational codex that has always been in a level of participation within the different variations of the Earth's expression of consciousness. So at different dimensional ranges in which Sophia Gaia, Mother Earth, has expressed itself creationally, right, at different periods of time. Like, let's say in some of the Atlantean expressions of creation, this unified field of creation had a stronger palpability and a larger interface because of the higher dimensional foundational framework of existence during those time frames. And so it has a unique relationship with all different dimensional ranges of existence. And I know we most relate at this point to our current expression of Earth, or what we're perceiving as our reality here as a human being right now, as a third dimensional matrix in way of transition, right? Some people feel that it's transitioning into the fifth dimension, and there's a lot of different speculation as to where the new sort of foundation, the baseline dimensional frequency and codex will will end up landing, within this couple of thousands of years of collective ascension, if you will. So the unified field of creation is, from my vantage point, was part of the original codex of the entire Earth experience and experiment, and meant to, again, participate in varying degrees and levels at, within all the different dimensional ranges. So during this period of collective ascension or ascension, enlightenment, however one most interfaces it, the unified field of creation is coming into greater palpability and participation as the Earth and humanity and all beings within and upon it begin to access greater and greater levels of their ascension blueprint, right? Of the collective template and blueprint of humanity and our own unique soul's expression, etc. The solar alignments of the central sun and the different star systems and the galactic center are the central sun, galactic center, Sirius star system, and the Earth have a unique level of interface and participation at this particular point in time with the igniting of this unified field of creation. And again, it's within the fabric of our experience here as an Earth incarnate. And through the different planetary and star alignments, the frequencies of solar plasma light that come in ignite and bring into greater animation and participation its interface with human consciousness, right? So back in November, I believe it was, of 2024, during the 1111 gateway, there was a big sort of catalyzing energy and solar frequency range that really ramped up its participation. Then, that continued to weave itself and harmonize and figure out its landing within everybody's blueprint. And then when we entered into the spring equinox, another massive interface and igniting, if you will, of its participation within the collective template, within the Earth template, etc. So basically, again, there's infinite ways in which to describe how the unified field of what it is, how it participates, etc. But really what's taking place, and maybe one of its greatest purposes at this point, is assisting humanity, assisting the entire Gaian matrix to come into a new interface, moving more and more out of the bi-wave codex and duality into the tri-wave codex of unity, right? And that's kind of a linear, simplistic representation of it, but I feel like we can all kind of vibe to some degree with what that means. So this unified field of creation is essentially represents itself within our physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies. We have our own micro of the macro of the unified field of creation that lies dormant, has been lying dormant greatly within our ethereal DNA, our crystalline DNA. So everybody and everything here, to whatever degree we signed up for, right, because we all come in with unique blueprints, are interfacing this upgrade and this greater level of this tri-wave codex and frequency as our carbon-based DNA begins to transition into our crystalline DNA, right? And so I feel like you so beautifully spoke to, now we're hitting these massive ranges of energetics, these big portals, these big pockets. We're about to go into eclipse season. I mean, all of this foundational interface and upgrade that's been taking place with this unified field of creation just continues to ramp up more and more and more every single time we interface, a new potent portal of potential and participation. And so one of the ways it can be described is it offers us an opportunity to come into more and more and more identity with ourselves as an infinite creator being of infinite creational potential, and dissolving the many layers of limitations, we'll say, right, that are programmed within our identity as an ego, as a mind. And so this can be very confronting, especially depending on where someone is on their journey of inner exploration and self-realization, right? If you've been on it for a long time, you have a lot of tools, you're like, yeah, okay, what tools do I need today? It's still challenging, right? We have these days that are like, whoa. But ultimately, it's assisting us in dissolving a lot of the ways in which it's been programmed within the collective template, and purposely so, for learning and expansion, right? Just like everything. To begin to further dissolve the creational codex of limitations in way of linear time. So I'll pause there for a moment, because I know that was kind of big, but it's describing what the unified field of creation is kind of like describing what creation itself is, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot, but the key point right now, I think, for all of us is, during this intense time that we're going through, and we're all going through it to some degree, we need to use our tools. And even sometimes, even when we are using our tools, still, even it can be challenging. So the best way to navigate at this time is just to trust and be in stillness, be present, and just observe and see what, and basically see what happens, how you get through it, right? Without going into the drama, the story, the reactions, all those old paradigms, right? This is about being, again, co-creating our new reality, or our new way of being, basically, right? So we cannot express ourselves the same way that we did before, right? Now it's time for us to recognize that we are co-creating this, and we are a part of this, and at the same time, we have tools, resources, and the light frequencies that are flooding in right now are assisting us so that we can remember who we are, and with that remembrance, somehow it'll all work out.
It always does, guys, right?
It always does, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's remembering that, right?
Absolutely. Well, I love that you say that, because one of the ways in which I feel, we can really access more of our unique infinite potential that is housed within each one of us, and always has been, right? Under the layers of human conditioning, and purposely so. I mean, I truly believe that we all created our blueprints here, or co-created our blueprints, right? We come in to experience all different levels and layers and depths of duality and polarity for the purpose of curiosity and curiously exploring new nuances and new ways of creation, right? The ego has a field day with that, right? Because the ego is like, no way, because the ego is a finite system and, and truly believes, and purposely so, that, that we, someone created our blueprint for us, that we're all here as a victim of, of fate and circumstance and so forth. And of course, again, we know we came in to experience that. What would it be like to have an ego? And this ego forgets that it's an infinite creator being, that it's part of source, and that everything else is too, right? And then it's a victim of everything. Everybody's either a victim or victimizer, right? So one of the ways in which time has greatly been woven into this fabric of, of victim, victimizer, and or warring, is that we have been, programmed to be like me against the clock, running against the clock, right? The end game program, like, when am I going to get there? Am I going to get there in time? I got to beat the clock. I've got to, and all of these programs lead to a great sort of shutdown, and oftentimes a deep, different combinations, of course, because we're all unique, but a lot of disassociation, and it creates potential paralysis, right? Because we get so overwhelmed in it, and it's, and we're this victim of the system of time that, we can't do anything about it, and right? When in actuality, time, linear time, and the matrix of linear time is sort of outside of the scope of what was just being described as a lot of programs that have been kind of utilized to create the warring frequency between humans and time. Linear time itself, the matrix that is woven within the fabric of the third dimensional construct, is very purposeful, because that matrix allows for everything that is currently perceived as physical to have the codex within it, so that we can have this physical experience. In other words, without the fabric of linear time, everything would be moving, at a higher speed, and that higher speed would preclude us from having the unique experience of physicality that we have here. So, one of the main purposes of this construct, of this fabric of time, is so that we can run our oversouls and our souls, in a program that slows down the creational codex enough so that it can be perceived physically. So how can we come out of this, system of duality and polarity, and this warring frequency with time, and come into the greater access of the unified field of creation, which of course is woven within our fabric, as earlier mentioned, right? So, and yet, allows for us to have an opportunity to have the perceived experience of physicality that we have now, while accessing creational potential beyond the limitations of duality, right? Beyond the limitations of duality. So I'll pause there for a moment and see if there are particular avenues that you want to explore with that.
So time is, relative, I'm going to say, at this point, but it's like time is necessary for us to have this physicality and to have these experiences that we signed up for in some way, right? Like, we chose to be here at this time to experience certain things. And so for that, we need the parameter of time, linear time. But we can still access the unified field of creation to assist us as we're moving through this linear time, through this physicality, right? So we are still going to be here having a physical experience, but having access to greater consciousness. I'll just say greater consciousness, because that's just simpler, right? Greater consciousness that can then inform us in not better ways, but in different ways of navigating, more hopefully ease-filled ways of navigating this time or this experience. We're still going to go through the experiences, but perhaps sometimes those experiences don't have to be as extreme. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Absolutely. So again, the unified field of creation, albeit on a larger sort of macro version of expression and construct, is a fabric, a plasmic field of sound, light, and plasma that's, woven into the fabric of our creational codex, our creational system, or our matrix of Earth. But it's also, again, it's woven and exists within the fabric of the micro of our, of our human template, that houses our physical, mental, emotional, and spirit body. And the way in which it can, be greatly related to in way of its functionality within us and its access within us is as the 0 point, because the unified field of creation has the access to all potentials of creation. And of course, that it interfaces every system of creation. It interfaces Earth uniquely, then let's say, the Sirius star system, and, right? So some simple techniques and ways in which we can come into the greater participation and activation and facilitation, and therefore accessing greater and greater and greater potential that it lies within us, is by connecting with it and calling forth the greater participation of it, right, through our intention and attention, directing it, and imagining this unified field of creation sphere that exists within our heart center, that exists within the 0 point, right? And breathing and expanding it all out in all directions, and allowing ourselves to become curious and playful with it, and maybe bringing it to the intention of that, I desire to dissolve all warring frequencies with time, right? I desire to dissolve all suffering and fear, and bring anything into it, because it's an infinite field of potential, right? But once you start to curiously explore to what degree, throughout, let's just say, a given hour, let alone a whole day, you are running subconscious and unconscious and even conscious programs of me against the clock, and and everything, you start to realize, like, oh my gosh, wow, I really give so much of my life eternal energy to these programs. And so if you can neutrally and curiously begin to explore that, it's like a treasure hunt. It can be a little bit overwhelming. At certain points you might be like, oh my gosh, like, is everything about time? And the warring frequency with time. But the more we get curious about it, and the more we explore it and have an awareness of where we might be creating limitations for ourselves, right? Where we might be playing into fear, and like the fear of the unknown, and where it might be really creating a dysregulation within our nervous system, etc. That's very empowering, right? Because awareness is like the wrapping paper on the gift. It's like, okay, I have this awareness. Whoa, okay, okay, I didn't really ever curiously explore or recognize to what degree these programs of me against the clock, and and us against time, and being a victim of time, basically, have been playing out in the discordant energies that are running through my physical, mental, emotional, and spirit body. And we can simply, in the awareness of them, bring forth some breath, expand the unified field of creation within, right? Expand our infinite potential and the timeless nature of our soul and our oversoul, right? And begin to choose differently. What would it be like if I chose to not give my energy, my sovereignty, my self over to this program? What if I decided I'm not going to create this level of anxiety and resistance with time? I'm going to take some breaths. I'm going to drop into greater presence. I'm going to down-regulate my nervous system and really allow myself to recognize that I have plenty of time. I have all the time that I need, and everything that I need to get, that actually needs to get done, right? Or is in the highest expression of my path of existence here to get done, always does. Because if we stop and pause and even get curious about that, we recognize it always gets done, guys. Somehow it always gets done, right? But what happens when we run these programs and we're in it and we're slowing down, our access to the infinite fields and the infinite creational filaments, aka timelines of potential that are capable of being accessed in any given moment, right? So when we start to get curious and we start to say, okay, what would it be like if I allow myself to let go of these fears around time and not getting things done, and the end game programs and the fear of death, what would take place. And I brought that energy back here into my heart center, and I allow myself to be present, and and I actually allow myself to bring in some joy frequencies and some other frequencies that help to further palpate and access that potential. Huge things begin to take place, and even more and more and more every day, given the dynamics of the energetic systems that we're in. So, just as we begin to activate this unified field of creation within, right, this 0 point, this access to our infinite potential, right, free of the harnesses and the low processing speed of running warring frequencies against time, then we access more of it, right? And so it's this, win-win situation that takes place.
So Stephanie wrote in the chat really quickly. She said, "I noticed for myself how even astrological time is a program that I war with." And I was going to add, like, things even like trying to control everything. That is like, for me, that's one of my biggest ones, right? Trying to just control everything, is a big one. So really, it's about dissolving all of these warring frequencies and coming back into trust and surrender, which I have a hard time. I'll be honest.
I think the majority of humanity at some point, if not many points, yeah, of course, right? Because that's how we're programmed, but purposely so, right? It's like, oh, no, we've got to control. But one thing that the unified field of creation has really brought into considerable illumination, if you will, is that, the unknown is really synonymous to the all-knowing. And the unknown's only unknown to the ego and to the mind because it has a finite system of access. So to really allow ourselves and afford ourselves the freedom and the ecstasy that comes with letting that control go and just allowing ourselves to curiously explore and surrender and trust in the unknown, boom. It's like divine fertilizer, right? It opens up and it creates a super highway for coming out of suffering and and the illusionary constructs. But yeah, I mean, when so many of the programs that we've imprinted within us are to suggest that that's the absolute worst thing you could ever do. Like, don't trust in the unknown. Try to control everything. That's all we know, right? And so, yeah, this is an epic time, and it's really challenging. And every single dualistic program and imprint that we've chosen to have as part of our experience here, and it's feeling pretty whopper right now. So really, what's that saying? Like, if you can't win, join them or something. I don't know. I make up things all the time, but it's like, well, I know what it feels like to be in resistance in it and fear of it and anxiety around it, and because we've all experienced that. Let's try the opposite, right? Let's breathe. Let's drop in. Let's expand. What happens then? And every time we've done that, ever since we were a little kid, and our parents are like, just take a breath, and initially we're like, I will never breathe again, and you like hold your breath until you like turn, and then you take the breath, right? And then you go in your room and you're like, I'm going to take more breaths, right? Where your parents can't see you, so they don't think, so they don't realize that you're actually taking their advice. But you take these breaths, right? And everything starts to get clearer and softer and more open and available. It's so simple. We try to make everything so complicated. But yeah, for sure. Letting go of control.
And in like at this point in time right now, I'm being pushed to that point where I have no choice but to surrender and trust and just be in the flow. So it's like, okay, like, the universe has just said enough and just pushing me. So it's like, okay, but control, you know, um, you know, did you ever get that horse to drink the water? What is truly control? And are we truly in control anyways? I don't think so. Our mind, our ego tries to keep control of everything, but truly, I don't think that we have any control. Oh, everything is going to happen the way it's going to happen, but it's how we react or how we respond. Instead of reacting, how do we respond to what is showing up, right? And then what are we choosing when life is unfolding? What are we choosing in that moment, right? So I don't think there is any true control. I think that's just a mind game, like that warring frequency, that mind game that's happening, but I don't really think we can control anything. So it's about surrendering that wanting to control and allowing ourselves to just be in flow.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I feel like, well, control is a fear frequency, right? It's in resistance. And so really what I am perceiving more and more is that what replaces control is sovereignty, which is you're bringing back all the parts of you that have purposely been dialed into all, full spectrum of duality and fear programs, and you're dissolving those and you're coming into a greater field and embodiment of your I am presence of unity, right? And in the sovereignty of your sum total of creational energy, no longer participating in illusion and fear and suffering, you truly then do have access to a creational codex, an infinite creational codex, and you also have a full disclosure, if you will, and clarity of exactly what you came in as an infinite eternal soul to come in and to participate in here. So control becomes dissolved. It's no longer necessary because you're all knowing. And when you have, access to the awareness of what, who you are and why you're here, there's no need to control anything because it's just flowing in a creational state, effortlessly, right? So control is an illusionary construct for sure. But purposeful, and we all love to, dabble in it while we're still identifying with duality. Yeah.
And I think we will, continue to do that from time to time. So it's about giving ourselves grace as well for when we are having those experiences and being witness to it, and then bringing ourselves back to center, back to stillness, back to our heart space and expansion, etc. But it's about recognize. I think the biggest piece is the awareness. Is like, oh, right now this is the frequency that I'm playing with, right? The frequency of fear, the frequency of control, or whatever it happens to be. Just getting to that awareness part is a huge step in itself. And I think once we can, and without judgment, it's just like this is what's happening right now, right? And this is what I'm playing with. This is there's something here for me to learn, even in that, right? Even in that, there's something there for me to learn, because it's a frequency that may have been deep in our patterning that is coming up to be resolved and cleared and healed and looked at, etc. Right? So it's like, it's not about running away from and resisting it, but truly being a witness to it and observing it.
Yeah, love it. I love it. It leads to one of my favorite quantum hacks, which is choosing to perceive everything, everyone as divine perfection. Like what happens then? It's like a complete dissolving and dismantling of our quantum entanglements within, separation, suffering, and fear. So I feel like that's pretty much what you were just alluding to, right? It's like, okay, I'm here as the watcher of this Earth movie that I am playing many different characters and roles in, right? And I'm gonna just, with childlike curiosity and, free of all judgment, in the flow of acceptance and embrace, going to meet every situation, every person, everything as the perfect system of creation that it is. I mean, it's so easy and yet not so easy, right? Because all of so many of our programs, right, are to suggest that this is absolutely ludicrous. But I assure you, if you choose to participate in this every day, over and over and over again, your access to the unified field of creation, your access to, transcending all these perceived limitations and so forth is massive. It will be irritating to many people. I will put that out as a precursor to this. What do you mean? You're just fooling yourself, right? And it's like, well, we're infinite creators and we're reprogramming our default mode network within our prefrontal cortex. And the way we rewire that, right, is by replacing old systems of belief, with new systems of belief and new systems of participation. So, yeah, it can be a lot of fun if we allow ourselves to engage it in that way, right?
And the engagement is not just a one-time thing. It's like, yes, every day, but sometimes you're going to have to put it on your phone and schedule the time to remind yourself, because you're going to forget. You're going to get caught up in, your daily tasks and daily life, and then you're going to forget. So it's like coming back to that on a regular basis throughout the day and remembering and reminding yourself. So, and then I'm going to get to your question in a second. I just want to finish off this piece, especially with this making peace with time. That's a doozy. It's like, what happens when we make peace with time? And just reading that sentence, what happens when we make peace with time? If for me, it feels like when we can make peace with time, it's like I got goosebumps all over. I got chills all over. It's like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the baggage, a lot of those things just fall away. It's it's so the word I'm getting is freedom and expansion, and I'm like freezing now. Like, I've got chills all over. So yeah, I get the feeling of it, but how do you make peace with time? And like, I mean, other than just how I just said it, just being in it, right? Yeah, just choosing to make peace with time. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I feel like one of the really assisting a field of pure divine creational codex that it can create the medium of coming into greater peace, right? And coming into greater dissolve of warring, because what's the opposite of peace, right? Some level of conflict or friction or resistance, right? So calling in and calling through, right? Because it's not, as we the mind tends to imagine everything is outside of us, when actually everything's within us and all around us, and we're within everything else too, right? So, but amplifying and radiating out this unified field of creation, right? And if it's helpful for wherever we are in any given moment of consciousness, to imagine it, precipitating in and through, it makes no difference to the unified field of creation, because as soon as we, as an infinite creator being, direct our consciousness into desiring to come into greater participation with the unified field of creation, that's exactly what takes place. Unbeknownst to the linear mind, and maybe not in some grand, expression of fireworks, and maybe yes, because that has actually happened, like so much light and illumination. But regardless of what the mind's, value system or level of determining, to what degree of participation is taking place once you call it in, right? Because the mind doesn't have access. It's not within the mind's, program to be able to conceptualize and or access the unified field of creation. It's beyond the mind hive, if you will, right? So we call it in, we expand it out, we take some breaths, and we set the intention. I dissolve all warring frequency with time. I open the pathways to come into full unity with time, right? Time within, time throughout. Powerful. And so many of like the aging frequencies and the ways in which our physical body and our cellular waters are constantly attuning to the belief system, that it's me against the clock, the fear of death, I'm aging, I'm deteriorating, all the disease programs, et cetera, begin to dissipate, right? And begin to dissolve, and we start to feel a more abundant flow of our life eternal energy coming through. And if we really allow ourselves to dive deeply into it and embrace it and trust it, and like you're saying, Shefali, like in a consistent daily devotion and practice to it, you can begin to watch reversal, like age reversal taking place, right? And and that's just something that throw the mind a bone, if you will, or some candy, because we've put so much value and validation into that, right? But there's so many ways, but we can simplify it by just simply saying, I'm at peace with time. I am. I call forth the full dissolve of all warring frequencies with time. And just mantra that, you breathe in this unified field of creation, right? This infinite potential, this dissolve of duality. And you breathe out and you exhale and release all warring frequencies, all fear, all suffering, all illusion. And it could be that simple. Yeah. But it is whopper. And when you start to get curious, like you were just doing, Shefali, and you really ask yourself, what would it be like? Big things take place. And I imagine the majority of people that are co-creating with us here right now have some pretty significant blueprints and, and are pretty dialed in, which means all the more potency that comes from such a practice, right? Because of all the foundational practices that you've woven into your into this lifetime and into your blueprint of enlightenment, etc. So it's what used to take, the processing speed would be like, okay, months and weeks, perhaps to feel any sort of, big shift and change. The quantum leaps and jumps that are accessible right now are whopper. Right? You can shift your entire reality within, a few meditations at this point, right? And so playing around with it, and the naysayer of the mind is like, yeah, right, I don't believe it, right? So, okay, well, come on board and, watch the movie here with me.
Absolutely. And, for some of us, the mind, the ego is a protector, right? Wants to keep the status quo, etc. So it's going to say, "Oh, this is silly. This is dumb. This is not going to happen. It can't happen that fast," right? And that's when you start to get those types of thoughts, that's when you have to really look at. It's like, oh, if the mind is wanting to fight with me with this, let me try it. Let me go a little bit deeper. There's something here that the mind is uncomfortable with, that it doesn't know, right? Because the mind does not know everything, right? And so this, when we're talking about the unified field of creation, that again, like you said, is something that the mind cannot grasp, the mind cannot conceptualize, the mind has no experience of, right? So of course it's going to resist anything that is beyond it, because it's trying to keep you, the physical body, the mind, alive and safe and protected, and that's fine, right? But that's when we have to talk to ourselves, talk to the mind, talk to the ego, and say, you know what, we're just going to play. Like Sherry says, love that, play, right? We're just going to play with this. We're just going to see what it's like. We're just going to play, and that will then soften your own interaction and engagement with it, because that way there's no huge expectations. We're just playing, right? And that's also going to help the mind to calm down a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that you bring that in, because really the mind, the sooner that we befriend our mind and our ego and realize that it is going, it's very, our very ability to come into enlightenment and fully, ascend is to come into complete unity and dissolve of all separation with the mind, right? Which seems so like, well, how is that, right? So as we, like you're saying, become playful and we invite, ourselves, the mind is a part of that, right? The mind is a part of that. And albeit the mind, in its carbon-based infrastructure doesn't have the access within the carbon base to access the fluidity and the potential within the crystalline codex of, let's say, this level of access to the unified field. The more that we come out of the warring frequency with the mind, say, okay, well, just come along for the show then, and bring it in, the more we are able to ignite and access that crystalline DNA. And then we come into, the higher levels of participation of, what's often referred to, of the heart and mind coherence field, right? We dissolve the limiting infrastructure of the third dimensional egoic construct, because we're no longer warring with it and we're bringing it along and we're dissolving its programs. And then we are accessing the unified field of creation within, which is a system of intelligence whereby the mind and the ego allows us to continue to have a sense of relatability within this physical range of existence. It works on our biological functions and things that, keep us here and keep us physical, but no longer is, kind of precluding us or creating a system of resistance to our highest potential, right? So making friends with our mind, essentially, and realizing, okay, you're coming along, we're on this journey together. I'm gonna give my full, presence as the witnessing presence, right? And I will expand my light and hold space for both that as well as my mind, right? And that's how we can remain sort of in the playfulness of it and also simultaneously ascend.
I just had one other key point to ask about this, and it has to do with, when we're talking about the dissolving the end game. Does that also, I'm assuming it does already, so also includes dissolving of like identities, or not identities, but our identity, right? So I am Shefali, the host. I'm a mother. I'm a this. I'm a that. All that as well helps with that, because we get so tied into it. We get so attached to our identity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So endgame being really anything that is conclusive, finite, and stagnant in its evolution of infinite creation anew, right? So when we put, and participate with an endgame program, which is, full spectrum, fear of death, fear, I've got to, get all these things done, and there's so many of them, right? But also an endgame program being, just a conclusive and finite level of identity, that holds our creational energy, our infinite potential, in a system that doesn't access our infinite potential, right? So absolutely, the more and more we're dissolving and we realize, wait a second, that's right, I'm an eternal creator being who's here having a human experience, who's existing simultaneously in infinite other systems of creation, right? And albeit at some point, maybe not, because I don't like to even be conclusive in this anymore. I've seen blueprints that suggest that, some people won't physically depart from this incarnation until, they choose to, and it's going to be far beyond what is currently perceived as a lifespan, if you will. But for the most part, most of us, have created a departure point, right, from our physical body, where we take our oversoul, our eternal creator self, and we take that calm of source essence, of creational essence, and whoop, right, we pull it back out, and the physical body returns to, the dissolve within the earth, right? But we're infinite. And so one of the biggest endgame programming is just that all the fear and the programs that have been woven into the nervous system of, that fear of that physical departure. That physical departure has, these endgame programs have so many subconscious and unconscious programmings that, like, that's it. That's the end of it, right? And all these things about, that's the end of my life. That's the end, I'll never see this soul again, and all this stuff. Which then, really precludes us, brings the fear of life. And so many, and it creates this potential paralysis, and we don't realize how much of our subconscious and our unconscious is running in those programs. So when we start to get curious, and we literally, again, it's this simple, it may not be that easy, because it requires us to show up and get curious and consistently participate in it, but we start to say, okay, well, I don't even know all the end game programs that I'm running and what all the end game programs are, but I have an intuitive felt sense and deep knowing right now that they're not advantageous for my freedom, sovereignty, and and the full access of my potential. So in meditation, or however you want to do it, or you're walking, or mantraing, we're that powerful. And our crystalline, our water is awaiting, and our physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies are waiting for us to direct our consciousness and reprogram it, right? So we can simply say, I am free of all endgame programs. I hereby declare the full dissolve and transmutation of all endgame programs, all programs that limit my infinite, creator potential, my freedom, blah, 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 blah. And it's very powerful. And then we'll start to have an awareness. The clarity starts flooding in. Oh, whoa. Okay. Our higher intelligence starts to show us, you're running these. Oh, da-da-da-da-da, right? And then we have the awareness around those, and then we can let it go even more. And, and we peel away the layers, right?
Absolutely. And Stephanie says, also the habit to fill time with endless tasks instead of welcoming the stillness and opportunity to go within over noise. We all do it, right? And procrastination, we all procrastinate as well. And again, those are just programs and patterns that we are playing with, because sometimes we don't want to access that stillness because of the fear of the unknown, right? That's what it basically comes down to. Prayers always seems to be the word of the day. Yeah. Along with choosing our free will and sovereignty. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, do you remember that you are sovereign? You're a sovereign being here, right? But we forget when we get caught up in all the drama of the day. We forget. So so Brooklyn, there was a question from Annette. My goodness, one second. She said, I'd like to get clarity on the package, a 4-week journey with pre-recorded messages delivered once a week. How can I expect to be different by the end? So we're gonna talk about the offer. I can't believe how fast time is going. I have no idea what happened. 1 second, and then we'll talk about that. So you should be able to see my screen. So this is the package that Brooklyn has for us this time. It is activating the unified field of creation, dissolving all endgame programs, a 4-week recorded masterclass series for deep cellular and cellular transformation. All right, so Brooklyn, you want to describe a little bit or answer Annette's question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Annette, for the question. So these are pre-recorded, and once you have access to it, you have access to all 4 weeks simultaneously. And you don't have to start with week 1 and end with week 4, but there is to some degree a level of codex that's building. So you might find some advantage to following it in sequential order. And then, each time that shall you be called to go back to it more than one time, you will meet it, anew. So you're going to receive higher levels of access of the codex and the frequencies and so forth. There's a lot of opportunity at the beginning part of each of the recorded transmissions of different levels of consciousness, spoken in regards to the unified field of creation, a lot of the different programs that have been running and have been imprinted within our collective body template, human soul template, and ancestral template, etc., etc. So there are lots of ways, like simple exercises, if you will, or tools and ways to apply that broaden our awareness of where we're even participating in a lot of these programs, right? That start to bring up and bring greater clarity and levels of kind of flushing out, if you will, a lot of the ways in which our subconscious and unconscious have been participating in these. And so it's a combination of, channeled spoken transmissions, similar to what's been taking place, right, in our conversation today. And then we go into a deep meditative transmission of light, sound, and plasma, and that takes us into the unified field of creation and activates our own microcosm of that within our crystalline DNA, and begins to open and deepen and activate the expanded awareness of and actual stabilization of our cellular structure, so that we can take the awarenesses and then actually build a new foundation of participation and way of holding these higher harmonics of the tri-wave codex, right, within our physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies, whereby we're not always just defaulting to this or that, black and white, right? And a lot of the warring frequencies ultimately with time. So there's deep discussion and explanation of a lot of the different ways in which we've been imprinted within these warring frequencies. There's opportunity for people to reflect, and opportunities to take some different tools and meditation practices and breath practices and apply them into daily life. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, of course, during the sessions, there's an activation as well, there's a transmission as well, but even during that, you are opening up the unified field of creation and assisting with dissolving those endgame programs. So like during each call or class or master class, during each one, you're going to be different. So even if I do, this month, let's say I do all 4, well, next month when I do it again, I'm going to be different anyways, because I've already changed and transformed. There's been a change in my consciousness because I've already done it once, right? And so, and even if you're doing other stuff at the same time, each time you listen to it, you're going to be a different person. And so you're going to be dissolving more and more layers sometimes of these endgame programs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this package from Brooklyn is $99. There is a payment plan available. And of course, if you are an Inner Circle member, please use your gift code. And I was going to say, there was like, it depends on each person. Like if you go into it with an agenda, I always say this, like, if you go into something with an expectation, be prepared to be disappointed, right? But if you go in with that childlike wonder and play, that is going to be what causes the true transformation within you. I think, anyways, that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I feel like no matter, even if you go in with an expectation and an attachment with this particular field of consciousness, you're likely going to end up experiencing some pretty deep levels of energetic movement. However, attachment and expectation is a system of resistance, right? And also a system of limitation. And the very polarity, or opposite of that, is the unified field of creation, which is you're accessing infinite potential. So why even try to use the mind's conceptualization of what benefits we could possibly receive? Put those sort of here and expand here so that you can access, what your highest blueprint and what your highest self, is capable of accessing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And yes, and that you get to pace yourself. And I would not say do all four in one day or all four in one week. I mean, you need to give yourself, your body, your system time to process as well, right? So as you're releasing, as you're clearing, as you're dissolving, as you're upgrading, as you're up leveling, give yourself grace to process through that as well, right? So once a week, I think, is great. You know, you could do two in one week, maybe, but see, it depends each person. You have to see how you feel, right? And it's about enjoying the process. Like, again, there's no rush. Right? There's no time per se. It's like, take as long as you need. It depends on how you're feeling and what is coming up for you. So, but
Yes, well
I always
said.
say, give your body, your system time to process and acclimate and integrate the healing, clearing, upgrading, etc. Just to be kind to the body, please, because it processes so much, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I would say too, and I feel like it's listed somewhere in there, and if it's not, it was certainly said within the recordings, an up-leveling of your hydration, for sure, because of the level of energy that runs through these transmissions. So, prior to going, you don't want to run a lot of energy through a dry conduit, right? So,
Right.
And I feel like that's just coming in and coming through in so many different ways for everything, just on the daily right now, like remineralization, like really upping, hydration, focusing on the supple nature of our cellular structure, right? Like healthy fats and lots of hydration and minerals, and connecting with foods that are alive and that are bringing in another avenue of solar codes and frequencies and so forth. So I would say during this most omnipotent time that we are navigating right now, to bring into participation this particular 4-week series is to maybe even bring in, an additional level of support in way of, that which was just spoken, the hydration, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely support your physical body, but also the emotional body, the mental body, right? To process and the clearing, healing, etc., but also the up leveling, because sometimes the up leveling as well, the up leveling and upgrading, it happens much faster at the energetic level and takes a little bit more time for the physical body to catch up. So sometimes there's that gap, and so in the past we talked about like a healing crisis or whatever, but it's just that the body catching up basically, right? And it has to do a little bit of more work. So that's why it's like, don't do it all in one day. My goodness, like, you don't want to blow your circuits, right? So
Yeah.
so once a week is a good, safe practice, but check your knowing. What is your knowing saying? So trust yourself. Okay. All right. So are we ready for the DNA activation and transmission?
I am.
I am.
Is
Yeah,
everyone else?
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Okay. Any particular parameter, like 10 minutes?
Whatever you want. Whatever
Okay.
you
I
want.
just want to be respectful of everybody's space.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We have lots of time.
Okay, here we go. All right, so inviting everybody to take a moment perhaps and closing the eyes, dropping into the heart center. And you can be seated for this or lying down, whatever feels most nourishing and supportive in this now moment. So really just taking a moment, dropping into the heart, Taking a few nourishing inhales and exhales. Inhaling perhaps through the nose, filling the lower belly, filling the rib cage, filling the heart. Pause for a second. And exhaling through the mouth. Maybe doing 2 more of these deep nourishing breaths, really giving and prompting and inviting our nervous system to come into a place of greater spaciousness, coming into the humming and purring harmonics of the unified field of creation. And as you're surrendering and dissolving and allowing the nervous system to attune to the immaculate peace that's flowing through this unified field of creation here and now, perhaps allowing yourself to feel into, curiously connect to your intention. What is it that I, as an infinite creator being, having a human experience, desire to bring forth as my intention for this transmission of here and now? So taking a moment, perhaps you know instantly what that intention is. And as you feel like you've dialed into this intention, placing it within the center of your heart, as though you're planting a seed, and you're allowing yourself the space, the trust and surrender to witness it activating and growing. Kuriya prasatraya nraya naya paya sutremi andrayatra. Opening, allowing, opening, releasing, allowing ourselves to softly breathe and receive the radiance of immaculate peace flowing down and through and all around. It's immaculate peace that transcends all space and time, accessible through the unified field of creation. It's Trinity harmonic that opens ourselves to coming out of fight or flight and into the flow of peace, sovereignty, and freedom. As we allow for the pristine light to flow in and through and all around, we begin to feel our physical body coming into a deeper invitation of relaxation. It is here in this relaxation that we're able to access the pathways of dissolving the warring frequencies that have been held within the filaments of light within our nervous system. Gurya praharwe andraya satre sunreni andraya andraya poreya sandraya andraya Gurya prasandra harwe Gurya praya satpreya preyani andraya 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 Gurya prasandri andrarwe Gura praya sarwe andraya undaya andra Opening, surrendering, dissolving, igniting, trusting, as we feel ourselves dissolving, softening, opening, and remembering. Beginning to access the infinite potential, the infinite creational potential that lies deep within our cellular access. As the continued flow of immaculate peace pours through and all around, we feel a cellular rejoicing taking place, a crystalline activation that brings forth a remembrance of the infinite potential that exists within each and every one of us and always has. As we ignite and expand the unified sphere of creation within, we dissolve and release all limiting beliefs and patterns of dis-ease, discordance, discomfort. Kutala puasa tripia sundri andraya naya, kuria plala sundraya andraya, ngara sundraya puayana, kia puria sutriya sandranayana, aruasatrayana. Releasing, dissolving, allowing our bodies, our chakras, meridians, gateways, portals, to open to the flow of immaculate potential. Allowing ourselves to feel the energetics of our crystalline creational filaments coming online, opening, activating, remembering, connecting, harmonizing to the clear awareness of who we are and why we're here. Beyond the limitations, beyond the veils of illusion, we access a beautiful remembrance within. Ketriya sapre sundreni andraya, puriya sundre piya sundreya karue sandranaya, paralalo sundre piya piya sundre kaya sundraya andraya, arue sundraya prayanaya andraya. Releasing inflammation, releasing resistance, opening the gateways of infinite potential, creational potential, activating within, letting go of the old, opening to that which is aligned in your highest divine blueprint, in accordance with the highest divine law and order. I am immaculate trust. I am immaculate trust. I am immaculate trust. I am. I trust and remember who I am, why I'm here. I trust and remember who I am and why I'm here. I trust and remember who I am and why I'm here. Beyond all limitations, within the free-flowing access, resurrection, embodiment, and igniting of infinite potential realized, I am. I dissolve all warring frequencies within and throughout my physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies, the warring frequencies with time, the illusionary constructs of duality that preclude me from the highest expression of creational flow I am. Here and now, now and here, I open the gateways to the 0 point, to the infinite access of potential, of creational flow, of the everything and the no thing. I am, we are, opening, allowing, remembering, opening, allowing, remembering, opening, allowing, remembering. Kutra sarue na 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 na, kia preya saruana, Purea sunrea pana na na. Hiasa praha aum. Pia sundraya sandrana aum. Allowing ourselves now as we feel the radiance of crystalline waters of Sophia Gaia, Mother Earth, flowing down and through and all around us, further assisting and clearing, cleansing, activating, supporting, nourishing, and guiding the embodiment of all levels of activation that have come through here and now. And these sacred waters, these crystalline waters of Gaia, we feel ourselves now grounding back into our physical bodies, grounding back into the here and now. The radiant roots of our divinity, the filaments of creation ignited within begin to root down and reach into the central crystal earth star core, where we are supported, nourished, guided, and held within the unified field of elements. This radiant system of nourishment and unconditional love assists us now in grounding back into our physical bodies, grounding back into the here and now. And as we ground back into our physical bodies and back into the here and now, we come into an awareness once again of our physical space that we are currently residing within. Perhaps placing a hand upon our heart center, connecting in immaculate truth, trust, peace, and clarity. I remember, I remember, I remember. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ama on, ama on, ama on. Coming back into the presence of your space, of this community, connection, and co-creation as you feel guided and ready.
What is happening? I'm not able to fix this. Oh my goodness. How's everybody doing? Took me a second to come back and be, be present fully to be to do my stuff here. It's like nothing is working. Oh, that was amazing, right? Uh, totally connected to those frequencies. Awesome. That was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. I'm slowly coming back to it. Was like I could have stayed in that space for so much longer, and I'm like so warm now. Remember before I was like freezing? Remember? I'm like so warm and so hot now. I feel so good. Thank you. Oh, what beautiful. Thank you. This was beautiful. Oh, it just be in that space. Good. How is everybody doing? Um, I'm just checking. I can't even read my glasses. Yeah, thank you, Brooklyn. That was great. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was,
Thank everybody.
yeah, I see, like, thank you, feeling so relaxed, right? Yeah, I just feel bliss. Awesome. And so, this was a short, I don't even think it was 10 minutes. Maybe it was, I don't even know. But I have no idea. Um, but this was so beautiful. And the light language I found just was like pulsating through me. It was like it was so powerful, just pulsating through me. Um, I loved it. So definitely, if you you can go back and watch and listen and go through that again. But also, if you'd like to work more with Brooklyn, take a look at the package and receive these types of transmissions, except different, obviously. But I was just so deep in it, I don't even know half of what you said, which is fine. Right, which is fine. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. As we know, right, beyond the words, the linearly spoken words is a transmission of remembrance. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I'm definitely glowing more, definitely smiling more. There's just so much more ease, and it's just I think somebody mentioned bliss earlier. I just feel bliss. Andrea said, yes, exactly. That's what I'm feeling too. So beautiful. Exactly what I needed today. So
Yay!
thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, any last words of wisdom for us before we go today, Brooklyn? I
Yeah.
just feel like there was so much wisdom today already.
Well, just wanting to, give a moment and an expression of gratitude for everybody that is, with us creating this experience together, for all of us being here, and courageously accepting the invitation to incarnate during this Whopper system of energetics this year. So I would just say, wisdom would offered in this moment is just to take some time to celebrate who you are and why you're here and everything that you do every day to show up for yourself and for humanity and for the animals and the earth and whatever magical elixir that each one of us participates. I think a lot of times when we get caught up and swept up in the massiveness of the energetics and we take ourselves really seriously, right? We're like, this is serious stuff. And it feels that way as we're moving through some of the crunchy layers of it. But I feel we don't often take a moment in gratitude and grace to celebrate everything that we have experienced and have courageously walked through and participated within, and that can be really helpful just to take a moment, drop the serious suit, open ourselves, expand into some, laughter and gratitude and celebration. And yeah, I mean, it's like a rodeo, meets the big waves of Hawaii meets, I don't even know. It's a lot right now. So just, yeah, sending us all many, many blessings.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And yeah, that was perfect because you're right. We take ourselves so seriously sometimes, and we don't give ourselves enough gratitude and appreciation for the journey that we have been on, right? So, and you're right. We chose to be here at this time, and it takes a lot of courage for sure. But you know what? We'll get through it. It'll be okay. It is already okay. So it's all good. It's like remembering that it's just a game, and we're just playing, and it's okay. It's okay. In the grand scheme of things, there's really nothing to be serious about. Right. So
It's
thank you.
totally overrated. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Gosh, and I'm guilty of that for sure. I take things so seriously. It's like, oh gosh, enough. But yeah, so I will have the recordings out in a little while, so please do go back and watch and listen again. And of course, again, like I said, if you'd like to work with Brooklyn, please do check out the package. Sorry, there's just one package. And we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Brooklyn. This was brilliant. I loved it. This is definitely something I can definitely resonate with. These, dissolving the end games is so necessary, especially right now. So it's very timely. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you
Thank you.
everybody for all your questions and comments and feedback in the chat. Thank you, thank you. So again, like I said, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place for the last show of the season. It's like it's been a long one, so we'll be back last show of the season. So we'll see you again tomorrow. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, may you continue to be blessed with an abundance of joy, peace, love, happiness, prosperity, and radiant health. Sending you all so much love and blessings. Bye
Bye.
for now. Bye, everyone. All right. Thank you. Thank you.